The year is 1954. It is 3 o'clock in the morning in a small town in the American heartland. The streets are quiet. The shops are locked. The world feels like it's standing still. But as you turn the corner, you see it. A glowing island of pink and blue neon cutting through the dark. A temple of polished chrome and glass that never sleeps. Welcome to the American Diner. Today, we see these buildings as kitsy relics of the past. We think of milkshakes, jukeboxes, and checkered floors. But in the mid-century, the diner was much more than a restaurant. It was the beating heart of the American economy. It was the only place in the country where a bank president and a factory worker sat side by side on the same vinyl stools, drinking the same 5-cent coffee, eating the same blue plate special. It was a social experiment fueled by grease and caffeine.
But have you ever wondered why every diner looks exactly the same? Have you ever noticed they all have that long, narrow shape, like a box left on the side of the road? There's a reason for that. The diner wasn't just a building. It was a miracle of industrial engineering. It was a business in a box, built in a massive factory and shipped across the country on the back of a train. It was designed to be the perfect money-making machine, a place built for speed, built for comfort, and built to survive the hardest times in American history. But while the diner survived the Great Depression and the Second World War, it was about to face an enemy it couldn't outrun, an enemy that didn't care about conversation or community, an enemy that wanted to change the way we eat forever.
To understand the diner, you have to stop looking at it as a building and start looking at it as a product. Back in the late 1940s and early 50s, if you wanted to open a restaurant, you had to hire an architect, find a contractor, and wait months for a foundation to be poured. But for a returning veteran with a pocket full of dreams and a little bit of savings, there was a faster way. You didn't build a diner, you ordered one. In massive manufacturing plants across New Jersey and New York, places like the Jerry O'Mahony Company, hundreds of men worked around the clock to mass-produce these chrome temples. They weren't made of brick and mortar. They were made of steel, porcelain, and dreams.
They were built on a literal assembly line. First came the heavy steel chassis, then the plumbing and the wiring. Finally, the famous space-age skin of shimmering stainless steel was wrapped around the frame. But why that specific narrow shape? It wasn't a style choice. It was a mechanical necessity. These buildings had to fit on a standard railroad flat car or a heavy-duty truck trailer. If it was too wide, it couldn't get under the highway bridges. This meant that your entire business, the kitchen, the counter, the stools, and the lights, could be delivered to a vacant lot on a Tuesday, and you could be serving eggs and bacon by Thursday morning. It was the original turnkey business. For the American middle class, it was a ticket to freedom. You were the boss. You held the keys. And as long as your neon sign was humming, the money was coming in. The diner was invincible. It was a tank dressed in a tuxedo. But as the 1950s rolled on, the owners of these diners began to realize something. To keep the dream alive, they had to master a secret science, a science of human behavior that happened right at the lunch counter. When you stepped through those heavy swinging doors and heard the bell chime, you weren't just entering a restaurant. You were entering a carefully designed machine. The heart of that machine wasn't the kitchen. It was the counter. Have you ever wondered why diner stools are bolted to the floor? Or why they swivel?
it wasn't just for comfort. Those stools were the most valuable real estate in the building. The diner owner knew a secret. If you sit on a soft sofa, you stay for an hour. But if you sit on a hard, round stool, you eat, you finish your coffee, and you move on. The swivel allowed you to turn toward your neighbor, turning a meal into a conversation. It turned strangers into a community. And behind that counter was the conductor of the orchestra, the short order cook. In the 1950s, the short order cook was a working class hero. He didn't have a fancy hat or a quiet kitchen. He worked in front of the crowd, under the heat of the lights, flipping burgers and poaching eggs with the speed of a machine gun. He knew every regular's name, every trucker's route, and exactly how long a bottomless cup of coffee should stay full. This was the social hub economy. People didn't just come for the food. They came to feel like they belonged somewhere. Before we go further, I want to hear from you. Everyone has a diner story. Maybe it was a late-night stop on a road trip, or a Sunday morning with your grandfather. Do you remember the name of that local spot? Tell me about it in the comments below. Let's keep those memories alive. The diner was the king of the American road. It seemed like nothing could stop the momentum of the chrome and the neon. But while the world inside the diner felt safe and warm, the world outside was changing. A new map of America was being drawn. A map that didn't include small-town main streets. A map that was designed for one thing only: constant, high-speed motion. And as the pavement stretched out across the desert and the plains, the diner was about to find out that community was no longer a profitable business model. By the mid-1950s, America was a nation on wheels. The war was over, the economy was booming, and the driveway of every suburban home held a shiny new piece of Detroit steel. But the biggest change wasn't the cars themselves, it was where they were going. In 1956, President Eisenhower signed the Federal Aid Highway Act. Suddenly, massive ribbons of concrete began to stretch across the horizon, bypassing the old, dusty main streets and cutting through the heart of the countryside. This was the golden age of the road trip, and for the American diner, it was a gold mine. But have you ever noticed why 1950s diners are so bright? Why the neon signs are so oversized and the chrome is so reflective? It wasn't just about looking cool, it was a survival tactic. When you're driving 60 miles per hour down a dark highway, you only have a few seconds to make a decision. The diner had to be a beacon. It had to scream safety, food, and comfort from half a mile away. The neon wasn't just art, it was a lighthouse for the weary traveler. For a few glorious years, the diner was the king of the interstate. It was the oasis of the road. But this new highway system was a double-edged sword. It brought speed, and speed is the enemy of the traditional diner. The same roads that brought customers to the diner's door were also bringing a new kind of competitor. A competitor that didn't care about the experience of a meal. A competitor that saw the diner's greatest strength, its slow, friendly community atmosphere, as a massive waste of time. In the rearview mirror of the American dream, a new set of lights was appearing. They weren't pink and blue neon. They were giant golden arches. And they were moving a lot faster than the old-fashioned diner ever could. The conflict didn't happen overnight, but it was a total war for the future of American culture. On one side, you had the diner. It was built on the idea of service. You sat down, you used a real metal fork, you drank from a ceramic mug, and you talked to the person next to you. It was a place where you were a guest. On the other side, a new titan was rising. Men like Ray Kroc and the McDonald brothers looked at the diner and didn't see a community. They saw an inefficiency. they realized that the most expensive thing in a restaurant wasn't the food, it was the time. Every minute a customer sat on a swivel stool after they finished their meal was a minute that stool wasn't making money. The social hub was actually a financial trap. So the fast food giants stripped everything away. They took away the porcelain plates and replaced them with paper bags. They took away the metal silverware and gave you plastic. They even took away the waitresses. They turned the kitchen into a literal factory assembly line. It wasn't about the griddle man and his craft anymore. It was about the system. By the late 1960s, the economic pressure was becoming unbearable for the independent diner. As the suburbs grew, land prices went up. The short order model, with its low profit margins and high labor costs, started to buckle. One by one, the neon lights began to flicker and go dark. The factory-built temples of chrome were being replaced by cookie-cutter plastic buildings that all looked the same, smelled the same, and tasted the same. It looked like the end. It looked like the diner was headed for the scrap heap of history. But as the chrome began to rust, something strange happened. The diner stopped being a place to eat and started becoming something much more powerful. It was about to transition from a business into a legend.
The world moved on, but the diner refused to disappear. By the 1970s and 80s, these chrome landmarks had become more than just restaurants. They became symbols. They were the setting for our movies, the backdrop for our paintings, and the place we went in our minds when we missed a simpler time. Hollywood turned the diner into a stage for the American experience. From the neon-lit heartbreak of Edward Hopper's paintings to the leather booths of Pulp Fiction and Seinfeld, the diner became the ultimate icon of cool. We realized that when we lost the diner, we lost something vital. We lost the third place. We lost the spot where the coffee was never-ending and the conversation was free. Today, the few original diners that remain are like time capsules. When you sit at that counter and feel the cool stainless steel under your hands, you aren't just eating a meal. You are touching a piece of the 1950s. You are connecting to an era when we built things to last, and we built them to bring people together. Now, the hidden economy of the diner wasn't just about dollars and cents. It was about the value of a handshake, the worth of a community, and the beauty of a light that stayed on for you in the middle of the night. The neon might be flickering, but as long as we remember the sizzle of the griddle and the hum of the jukebox, the spirit of the American road will never truly go dark. Thank you for traveling back in time with us today. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the chrome and neon of the past, make sure to hit that subscribe button. In our next video, we're looking at another American icon that changed the landscape forever: the rise and fall of the great American shopping mall. You won't want to miss it. See you in 48 hours.